Okie doke. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the Public Practice Accountants Club, a space for leaders and emerging leaders in the accounting space to come together and connect over the unique challenges and opportunities faced by our industry. You can be at the forefront of transformation in the industry, make valuable connections, and hear some great conversations. And of course, the bonus is that you get to earn your CPD points for tuning in. So our topic this morning is Lessons from the Trenches, Unveiling the Secrets of Successful Accounting Practice Owners. Very topical for July here in Australia. Happy financial year to our accountants. And of course, I think I know everyone that's tuning in to Clubhouse this morning, but I will introduce myself. Hello, everybody. I am Linda Steffens, accountant coach, author, and speaker. And I particularly love to talk about business of accounting, business advisory services, and leadership in public practice. And of course, we've had a busy couple of weeks, haven't we, Kyelie Baxter?
It has been absolutely crazy the last few. Actually, I feel like I've been running nonstop since like the 5th of May or something like that. You know, we had those few long weekends in a row, and then I feel like we just went bang smack into it. So hello, good morning everyone. My name's Kyelie Baxter. I'm an accounting firm owner here on the beautiful Gold Coast actually, and I'm Linda's sidekick for our chat today, which is fun because it's a different topic than I thought, so also fun. I think it's just been renamed. I got here and I'm like,
it's just been renamed. Yes, we made it Trixie and renamed it, I'd say. So I'm not really sure who's the sidekick here, but you know, it's we'll just say we sidekick each other.
No, me. So I thought the topic was, what did I think the topic was? Something like secrets you wish you knew before you started your firm. But the topic actually
what it is. We've just wrapped it up into, you know, another fancy name. So yes, that's exactly what we're having a look at this morning, Kyelie. And we've had quite a busy week. We've been out celebrating the accounting industry in a number of ways. For anyone who's a CPA, and certainly a CPA in Queensland, and I'm sure other states have done it as well here in Australia, but we've had our recognition ceremonies, and so I've been part of those. And also,
I missed mine.
You were too busy doing tax.
I was traveling. No, I was traveling, so I didn't get to go to mine. That's okay.
And then we were, or Kyelie and I attended the Australian Accounting Awards in Sydney over the weekend. And I think the biggest thing that I took away from both of those events is that we do need to take the time to celebrate that, you know, this is a demanding industry, and we all do some wonderful jobs. And I think that particularly with awards, we all think that, no, why should I enter? I'm nothing special. But you are all very special, and I would highly recommend everybody, you know, going through the process of doing some of those award ceremonies, or at least popping along and seeing what happens, because it was a pretty exciting night for the industry, I'd say, Kyelie.
Yeah, look, I think so too. It was massive celebration, and particularly given that the event fell on June 30th, that gave it a bit of an extra kick. Some of those award winners were absolutely flawed, and I love seeing that. I love seeing surprise on people's faces, and they just felt, you know, so well recognised and very well deserved as well. It was a great night.
Absolutely. And some of the acceptance speeches were very candid, which is always very interesting for the crowd as well. So, you know, it was very cool. All right. So our topic this morning. So we're going to actually reflect on some of the key things that you wish you had known before starting your practice, because it's an invaluable exercise for every leader in the accounting industry, regardless of whether you are a seasoned firm owner or you're just starting out on your journey. By delving into these insights, we gain a deeper understanding of the challenges, successes, and of course, those pivotal moments that shape our journey. So, of course, as always, we welcome anybody that wants to pop comments into LinkedIn, if you're listening over in LinkedIn or on YouTube, and of course in the Clubhouse app, if you want to speak to us directly, you can just raise your hand to do that. So we're going to create a very supportive space today to openly discuss the experiences and the reflections that matter most to accounting leaders like you. So let's dive into some lessons learned. I know I have a few, and share some wisdom and, of course, pave the way for future growth, which is what this is all about. So in starting out, as luck would have it, this exact topic was discussed in a Facebook forum that I'm a part of, and I sat there very happily watching all of the absolute gold comments come through that paved the way into helping me with this topic. And it was structured around, tell me what the second best piece of advice was that you would give yourself knowing what you know now. Now, of course, a lot said the first piece of advice was run, don't do it, get out, don't start. Hence the second piece of advice, reverence. Look, I don't think that's the case. I think maybe we've certainly had those ideas somewhere along our practice journeys if we're in, somewhat seasoned in our journey, but certainly it never quite crossed my mind to come out of the accounting industry at all. Kyelie, how about for you? How have you felt about your journey in general?
Oh, it's a bad time to ask me. We've just finished the tax planning season. The journey's been good. Like I actually love what I do. Do you know what I mean? Like I really love the client contact, helping clients, advising them in that business space. That's probably my happy pocket. I think the journey this is a super hard career, particularly to get into. Those undergrad, grad, low-level intermediate roles are really, really they're the hard years. Those years equate to two small children and sleepless years. That's the equivalent of difficulty that they are, perhaps even harder, and they're really sink and swim. So how do I feel about my journey? I feel really proud of my journey, to be honest. Like I'm really happy where I'm at and how things are going. But I always have a bit of a regroup at the beginning of the financial year and sit myself down and give myself a talking to. And, what are we going to do differently this year? So, this topic probably lends to that as well.
All right, perfect. So I divided all of those comments and my thoughts into a number of different areas. And of course, like we always do, Kyelie, I think the place to start is that strategic big picture space. And one of the first comments that came up in this forum was start with the end in mind. So that's a very classic statement that we all know about. But to be honest, if you don't know what you're trying to achieve, then you're just going to go almost around in circles and up and down and round about. So starting with the end in mind, and what does that practically mean for us when we're in practice, I suppose? What does that mean to you, Kyelie?
Look, it could mean a few things. It could mean, hey, what's the succession plan? How are you going to get out of this? Are you trying to make a saleable asset, or are you just buying yourself a job? Or not buying yourself a job? Are you just starting yourself a job? Any of those are okay, as long as that's what you want and plan and intend to do. For me, I think if we're talking more practically, it's more about, well, who is your ideal client? How are we going to practically run this show? What software are we going to use? How are we going to manage our cash flow? Those sorts of more, business-minded decisions.
Absolutely. And also extending to that, what services am I going to offer? What work do I want to do? And then bringing the lifestyle into that as well. How do I want to work? How much do I want to work? Do I want to have staff? There's a whole lot of different things that you can sit down and think about. And I think whether you're seasoned practice owner sitting down at this time of year or just starting out, sitting down this time of year, very important to think about, well, what's the next 2 to 3 years look like, and what am I sort of aiming for here? And something else that I wanted to raise here too is that end can change. It's never set in stone. Just because you thought 5 years ago or when you started your practice that I wanted this lifestyle business, and this was going to happen and that was going to happen. I was going to have a team of 10. And all of a sudden, somewhere along the way, you decided, no, you know what, I'm just going to keep it small. I'm just going to do the clients that I want to work with, or whatever that looks like, and get some balance, or what was the thing that you were really aiming for. So it changes, right, Kyelie?
It completely changes. And I think that's because our lives change. No one knows what their personal life's going to look like in the next 5 years. And that's a key thing. People don't generally go into practice for themselves for many reasons other than lifestyle choices, I would say these days particularly. So it's really important that we do remember what that goal was with the start in mind. And I think that's when you start having to have a look at, well, who's my ideal client? What does my ideal work life look like as well?
Correct. And I know something that you talk about quite a lot is finding yourself a good core group of people to surround yourself with. Super important, right?
Yeah, that's one of my points here, asking yourself, how can I create a network, and what do I need that network to look like? Now, when you're trying to think, especially, we've got all these microphones now because it's obvious that the barriers to entry into this industry are as low as they've ever been. My whole career, certainly, which is exciting and great. It really gives everyone a great opportunity. But I think when you are going into practice for yourself, and even if you've got a few staff, you're certainly acting in that senior accountant director role, you have to look around and go, well, who am I going to bounce these ideas off? What am I going to do? So you need to surround yourself with a network of trusted people that you can go to and say, I've got this problem, what's the go? They may be paid or unpaid people, but you really need to make sure that you analyse your own strengths and knowledge as well, and just not really putting the entire pressure and stress on yourself.
Because we can't really do all this alone. I think a lot of us have tried, and it's a stressful career in its own right. We've got a lot of deadlines, and we're dealing with emotional type areas as well in finance and business and clients' lives, and we really need somebody that can be that sounding board or that backup for us, just to be able to even some days just vent, just get on the phone and go your hardest, and know that it's kept confidential, and it's all about you for once.
So I have like a little advisory board of people that I've put together for myself, which is really an absolute blessing in my life, and saved me many times. They're not accounting owners, and most of them aren't even in our industry, but they're in sort of allied industries, I suppose. So it's more about support for me for my business. As far as technical support, I'm lucky now. I've got some really strong senior accountants who technically probably know way more than I do, that I can rely on. Make sure we've got those other options as well. Bodies have some support lines. NTAA certainly offer it. There's knowledge base. Like, the world is your oyster, really. And if you feel like, I don't know where I'm going to get the answer from this other than Facebook groups are also a great resource, but sometimes sometimes people aren't as willing to share in those spaces.
Yes. And I think also too, sometimes we can get so busy doing the work that we underestimate how valuable taking some time in this space is, and also in the networking space, going out and creating relationships that aren't all client relationships or staff relationships. Super important. And the other really good comment that I just want to talk about here too is jump in and start. That was something that was a common thread through all of this advice that I was looking at, as a fair amount of perfectionism, I'd say, floats around the accounting industry. And we like to know that we're getting things right. And so, we can spend months or even years planning our business. So if you're in that situation, you're considering to go start your own business with these low barriers of entry, the advice is just get in and have a go, because you learn the most once you're in it, right?
Yeah, I guess you do learn the most once you're in it, but that's not to say how important planning is. I think we've all seen people that are 3 to 4 to 5 years through their business and they're almost burnt out, because we do have a really bad burnout rate in this industry as well. So you need to learn how to protect yourself. Mostly, I think that comes from not understanding who your ideal client is, and also the fact that if you give too much, clients expect too much. So you really have to, and it's a lesson I teach my team here, because, you know, it's all about client service and making sure the client's happy. No, it's not about that, actually. Our job is to support them, and sometimes clients don't know how they need to be supported. Sometimes they want what they don't need, and sometimes they need what they don't want. So our job is to show them the difference. Yeah, and that's a skill, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's entirely true. Clients simply don't know what they don't know. And it is up to us to lead the way in those things. So let's go there. Let's go to clients, because obviously we're a client-driven industry. It's about client service. What does that look like, and how does that fit? So pieces of advice around that. You've been talking about an ideal client, Kylie. Where do we start with ideal client?
Well, it's interesting. That's the question, right? Where do you start? Particularly if you're just coming into the industry. A lot of people just go, well, I need some cash flow. Geez, I've left my great paying job and I'm off on my own. I'm just going to take anyone. Right? I'm just going to take anyone. And that happens. And you see that happen all the time. And that's where you get 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the track. And you're like, I don't really like this. The client's too demand. So I think you do have to start with, what does your ideal client look like? And that's really analysing your own strengths and your knowledge, being really real about that, thinking about what you do well as well, because sometimes the bit that we really like is not what we do well, or what client need, where the demand is, particularly for you in your area, and just, you know, what your ideal work life looks like. You know, if you think I'm really happy to smash myself 4 months of the year, but then I want to take it pretty easy, don't do business clients. Like, aim towards more, you know, micro business or individual clients. You know, you're not sort of aiming for those $10, $20 million clients that need you all year round. Yeah.
And all like demanding, you know, the bigger clients, and rightly so. Their businesses are sophisticated, and they will need advisors of that ilk, you know. So very much so. So then thinking about, have I got a team? Have I got other support networks around me? All of that comes into play with this as well.
So maybe we should talk about team.
Because I think a lot of people really don't want to hire people. You know, they're happy to contract some work out. They're happy to, you know, send their super funds out. They might be happy to do a little bit of offshore. They don't want a team. And really that comes down to a big generalisation. But, you know, our accountable
people who knows.
Linda, you might disagree with me.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't want to manage people.
You know, they don't want to employ someone. They don't want that stress of their business.
I always find that really interesting, given the fact that we act as accountants and advisors for clients with employees and help them. You know, I think it's always interesting when I come across people that say, I don't want to employ someone. Like, I can't do the work, I won't do it. But the thing is, we can't be everything to everyone. And that's, you know, a really big thing to get your head around. But when you're dealing with clients, who are you going to be able to service if it's just one person? You know, we all get that and then stuff in. Like, I've got a bigger team. We all get that. The thing with clients send the stuff in at the end of the year because, I've been meaning to get an interview before Christmas, but blah, 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 you know, there's 50 rats, 1,000 raisins.
Yes.
If you're one person wanting to offer that high level of client service and turn around and keep your lodgement list tidy and do all of those things, it makes it really hard. So I think one of the secrets to successful practice owners is definitely managing your resourcing. No matter what, whether it's staff, whether it's offshoring, whether it's outsourcing, whatever it is, you've got to get that right.
Exactly. Whether it's you and your work-life balance, whatever that looks like. And I think that mix of professional and administration really comes into it there. So there's a number of things that, you know, oh, goodness me, to unpack all of that, I could go on forever. But I think the thing is that you've got to circle right back to the beginning, which is what you were saying. What is it that I'm trying to achieve here, and be absolutely realistic around being able to achieve that with that type of client? can you realistically achieve that on your own if you're saying, I don't want to employ staff? Now, the thing is, I think I've got a couple of theories around this, why we come out into practice for ourselves and it's like, I'm just going to do my own thing. I'm not going to hire any staff, is often I think that it's been a result of our own experience with perhaps managers or leaders that have maybe, not let us down a little bit, and our own experience around what that looks like. I also think it comes back to our confidence with can I lead? I don't think a lot of us in the accounting industry naturally see ourselves as leaders, where we absolutely are. You put us in front of a client and, we're brilliant at it. So that just needs to extend to our team or people around us. But there's a little bit of a knack in that and understanding the way we communicate generally. And so putting structure in your day also helps with management. But I really think a lot of this comes from bad experiences out in the workforce. And so we come out a bit probably burned out ourselves. And it's just like, I just leave me alone. I just want to do my thing. I don't want to have to be accountable to anybody. And I think that's where it starts. But our dreams and our hopes for our own businesses, our own professional careers, then don't quite match up with that ideal. So I think that's a really great area that if you are thinking of going out into practice, or even if you're in employment now, training or learning about people management and leadership. So important, because I don't think it's something we naturally see ourselves as, Kyelie.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Very fair. So if we're thinking about, the topic is
unveiling the secrets of successful practice
I think we need to really,
hit them up there as far as what are the secrets.
They sound so obvious,
but when we get to our own business, momentum takes place, particularly in
quarterly due dates and annual things to lodge.
I get to this time of the year and I'm like, I just want the world
it's just spinning too fast. We've come from tax planning, we're now into tax planning, we're now into payroll
returns, now we're into payroll tax returns and STP finalisation. Work cover declarations, just really keep going. It gets really fast.
So I think one of the real secrets is how you manage
time, your own time. It's about efficiency, it's about productivity, and in that space, then it really comes down to what
resourcing.
Obviously, my opinion, people hard.
People can look like many,
many things, like we just discussed. But the next one is how are you going to manage, the actual just flow of your practice? So, what tools and tech are we going to use to do that?
Now, suggestions in that space, because really the world is yours. We're out there, particularly in the last 2 or 3 years.
Particularly in the last 2 or 3 years, there have been some amazing things come out. But what I will say is, I think successful practice owners are constantly reviewing the tech that they use. We can get really stuck in our ways of, then there'll be all this
my clients won't like the change.
My clients don't like the change if it affects them.
Yeah. But the
real situation is, over the last 3 years, the tech that we have available to us, or the software and the apps that we have available to us as accounting firm owners, has not only increased in price efficiency and the ability of what it does, but the range has increased as well. So I think what I see successful practice owners do is review their tech stack all the time.
Not like I'll just do it once a year.
It's not like I'll just do it once a year. It's a constantly ongoing thing.
And there's some great advice to get out there as well. There's some industry professionals that are very good in this space that will actually, for smaller practice owners, actually lend their time to you, and because they're keen to help the industry themselves. So follow them on LinkedIn or their socials or wherever they are. They're going to give you some really good insights and help you just stay abreast of this, because it, like you said, Kyelie, it's there all of the time. It changes so quickly and there's something new being offered every other day. So that certainly was one of the secrets, investing in good systems, advice, technology, all of that. And make sure you do it on a regular recurring basis, which is Kylie's tip. So absolutely, because I think, with everything you get what you pay for, right?
And you do get what you pay for.
And you do get what you pay for, but sometimes you get it and you don't use it. So make sure you're analysing that as well. If you have a larger team with staff, make sure you're also working collaboratively with them to talk to them about the options that are available. So as an example, I pay for what I think is a horrendously expensive sort of
software that we use for our
research, that we use for our research, right? And it turns out no one's using that anymore.
I've sort of got as an ad hoc, it's like 10% of the price.
It's like 10% of the price, right?
Like truly,
this old one that like truly has been around since,
not in an online,
not in an online form, but since I started working, and now it's in an online form. So, like, what am I paying for that?
I was like, but what about the times?
And when I was like, but what about the times when we just blah blah blah? They were like, well, we just go to the legislative database.
Yes.
Like,
yes, let's do
good.
that.
Yes.
I think one of the things that we often
save that money.
Yes, one of the things we often see is we do manage by exception, and so it's like, there's those 2 times a year that I actually need it, and instead of thinking of a bit of a workaround, or just like you said there, we've got somewhere else we could probably find this, so let's save that money. So review of subscriptions and tech subscriptions particularly. Are we using it? Are we utilizing everything that is there? And one of the biggest mistakes I see in accounting firms is when they're putting in new tech or considering new tech particularly, is not allocating enough time to understand the full extent of the system itself and how that will actually work in your practice. Now, all our tech solutions, they're fabulous. They work in the pristine environments in which they're created in, but bring them out into our own practices, which are all slightly different, and they're going to work differently or function differently, or you may want a different result from them. Now, that's going to take some time to plan, to think about what you want from it, to be able to utilize the software to the degree that you're paying for it. So I think there's the biggest mistake. Allow some time for implementation. I don't see enough of that. And I also don't see enough of involving the team, if you have a team, in implementation, because they will often know stuff that you don't.
Yeah, I always say you need a champion.
Yeah, I always say you need a champion of a specific new piece of software or tech that you're trying to implement, especially if clients are involved in using it in any way, shape or form. So get your bang for your buck. Make sure you're not paying for stuff you're not using.
That sort of lens.
You go, Linda.
That's all right. I was just going to talk about a little more around resourcing. We talked about tech and good systems. Admin is another one. Administration resources. Again, something that sort of popped up a little bit already a while ago, is that you can't be everything to everyone and you can't do everything. Now, particularly in these days, I think there's a lot of automation and technology that we can use to save time. And funnily enough, it takes time to save time, which is what I was just saying. But there are also things, I'm a big proponent of the right people in the right jobs. So accountants do accounting. They apply tax legislation to sets of financial accounts and advise business owners. Okay? Bookkeepers do the bookkeeping and administration do administration. So if we think about a lot of the time, the jobs that we do or the work that we're doing, I guarantee that there is administration and bookkeeping happening in that. Now, I understand that we've all got to wear different hats, and from time to time, depending on what's happening in the practice, we all need to pitch in as well. It's not about that's not my job. But the thing is that there is, in the accounting industry, from what I see and experience, an inordinate amount of administration being done by professional people that could absolutely be handled, and often much better handled, by some of our very good administration and support staff. So I think about, and again, I'm going to go back to the hiring of a team. in my mind, the first person you should hire, if you are considering hiring, is an administration person, not another accountant, because they are the ones that are going to hone your systems and get everything set up so that they can actually support another professional, so that you're not there doing the support job as much as, pulling your hair out, trying to run around and get work in, talk to clients, do everything again. So administration, where do you sit on administration, Kyelie?
Yeah, it's funny. As I was listening
to you talk, I was thinking, I don't know if I agree with that. But then the first person I hired was
I must agree with it.
I must agree with it.
Yeah, I'm heavy on administration.
I'm heavy on administration, to be honest. Like, I think if I probably looked at the benchmarks, I'm probably quite heavy on my client service. But that's one of the ways I run my firm. We have super high client service, and we push things to them that are probably almost junior accountant level as well. So that's completely the way we sort of get our bang for our buck.
I know that you look at
important. I know that you look at, sort of people that have gone out on their own, and one of the biggest things that they say is there's just so much admin. The ATO keeps sending stuff, and the clients want, how are you doing? How are you dealing with all of that? So,
I think that's
I agree with you, Linda. I think that's really important.
Perfect. And then you were about to tell us something else about either resourcing or operations.
Yeah, I was going to talk about,
I was going to talk about, we sort of said getting tech stack right, make sure you're reviewing that. And I think one of the biggest keys to a successful business in accounting, but also in any kind of business, is obviously cash flow. Cash flow is king, is the most important saying that goes. Obviously, people want to get into running their own firms so that they're making all of the money for their hard work and personal exertion, which is so important.
Working really hard.
What happens when you're working really hard but there's no cash flow? How does that work?
In our industry, we
have this awful, like we sell time, right? Like we're selling a service. On the whole, we're selling our time.
Yes.
What happens when clients don't pay us? We are right now in, probably one of the worst, definitely we're in the worst financial economic situation since COVID hit and the world shut down, right? No one had any money because no one was spending any either.
Now, we've got people
whose timelines have genuinely gone up $500, $1,000, $1,500 a month, but just their spend is getting less and less and less. And
so when they have a service where they can come and they can get things done and they get the bill at the end,
and they get the bill at the end,
get the tax refund,
and then they still get their tax refunds. Where do you think we sit in the level of when they should pay us?
I think our industry, and especially because we've got good relationships with our clients, and we understand their financial position as well. That our industry is
I think that our industry is
where the worst,
I reckon, one of the worst with lockup. And if you don't take active steps to manage that, particularly early on in your business journey, or if you don't go, we've got a real problem here, we've got to get this sorted out, then you're doing yourself a disservice. Because we're accountants. We know the longer that we don't get paid for things, we may as well not have done it at all. We know that, right? So it's like stock on the shelf. You're not getting paid for it until it actually sells. So you want that turnover quickly. We want that cash flow in our banks quickly. So I am a massive fan, and I think it is one of the secrets for successful practice owners about getting paid as quickly as possible. Think about the services that you are going to charge up front for. Think about whether you're going to be a ongoing monthly retainer style fee charging firm. Think about how you're going to get that right, and then what tools you're going to use. Now, the tools that you can use, obviously, there's stack loads out there, I'll talk about ignition, but that's what we use here. We like that because it's a 2-in-1 product. It's an engagement tool, so we're getting our engagement letters done, as well as getting the clients to pay for their fees. But really honest, it's really expensive. Not the product itself; it's the merchant fees that are expensive. So, and you get that with Change GPS. We've got an engagement tool as well. There's all these sorts of ones, and sometimes you need to add in the merchant fee. No matter what you're using, you need to make sure that you're getting your bang for your buck. Now, with debtor days, particularly, I think that the cost of people paying by credit card or directly into the bank or whatever the merchant fee is so worth it, because I get the money straight away. You know, it takes away an admin person having to manage accounts receivable as well. You know, if somebody is spending a whole day or 2 days on statements for your firm or ringing and making payment arrangements with clients and da-da-da-da-da, it's just too hard, Basket. You want to make it easier than that, and you want to have that certainty of cash flow for your firm. So, secret of successful practice owners: get good cash flow and get your systems in place to make that happen easily.
So either that's good management of debtors, which I think comes about from educating clients, having good client service communication around things, but to my mind, upfront pricing. So, you know, whatever you can charge for upfront, and it's upfront pricing, it's not upfront billing, and it's not fixed fee. I get on my high horse about those. Upfront pricing is giving an indication around what we expect the fee to be. Now, simply all what that's doing is giving the client, again, that indication. They go, all right, okay, I'm going to need $5,000 by the time my tax return gets done in about 8 weeks' time. And it just takes so much stress out of the whole accounts receivable debtor process. And so, you know, and that's where you see some of these firms doing negative debtor days. You know, it is very possible. It's all just in how you are managing cash flow and managing billing of your services. So, yeah, super, super important. And yes, Kylie?
Well, times are changing, right? Like if we went 10 years ago for sure,
everyone had a trust account that we'd have to manage and use and get audited, and like wasn't that a pain? I would go as far as to say now trust accounts would be definitely a small percentage of firms would hold them anymore. You know, we used to use our pave refund and use our trust account, There's tech out there that do that for us now. You know, it's available. So yeah, if you're still using a trust account, probably that's one of the things to consider, because they are just people heavy.
Ask all the lawyers. They know.
Ask all the lawyers.
Yes.
They know.
And it's one of the things that when I go in and have a look at a practice, that's certainly the one of the things that I'm going to go, do we really need that? You know, let's look at a workaround, because you're right. They're resource heavy and they're risk heavy as well is the other thing. Okay, so thinking about cash flow, debtors, billing for our services up front, I think that leads a little bit into respecting yourself and respecting your time. You know, I think there's this almost an aversion in the accounting industry to charging what we're worth. You know, and what is that? And feeling like that we're immediately going to have conflict with the clients because we're going to send them a bill. Now that stems from generally our communication styles are very supportive, and so we often are more comfortable in a spot where people sort of tell us you know, what they're expecting or what they would like. Now when it comes to running your own business, that often you know sort of has to flip the other way sometimes. And so respecting yourself and your time, because if you don't do that, guess what? No one else is going to do that either.
Yeah.
So very, very important.
Yeah, I think scoping the work, like making
sure you've got a real complete scope of services and giving the client an upfront fee indication or charging them upfront or however you do what you want to do is fine. But I think the key thing that Linda's referring to here is making sure we're making the client aware of what we're going to do for them and how much we expect to charge them. That has certainly been the secret
here. You know, we've been doing that here.
You know, we've been doing that for a long, long time before it was a cool thing to do. And it really means that clients say, oh, that's too expensive. No worries. So you buy. I don't want to do work for free. I don't want my staff doing work for free. I don't want a situation where a client is surprised about the fee and then I've got to
waste my time. But it almost
I don't want to say waste my time, but it almost is. I don't want to waste my time on conversations that I could have had just at the beginning. So it's about setting yourself and the client up for success. And this does lead into cash flow, because if you continually do work and you think, oh, how much am I going to charge them? I'm just going to sneak this little bit extra on, and they pay it. Great. But what if they don't come back in again? You know, really you want to demonstrate your value before you do the work. So thanks for asking me about
always say,
because you know how people always say, hey, I've just got a quick question.
I know she's so busy. It's just a quick question.
I know she's so busy. It's just a quick question.
That's like, I just want some quick advice.
I just want some quick advice. Like, really, some advice can be quick, but we'll charge appropriately for the quick advice. And some advice can be extremely complex as well. So I also think that there's a bit of a system in the way you deal with that, because we get a lot of, hey, it's just a quick question, or hey, hopefully this is just a quick email. I have a bit of a line, when you go back to emails like that, to say, oh, unfortunately, it's a little bit more complex than what you said. Yes, capital gains is traditionally sale price less purchase price and Harvard if you held it for 12 months. But there's all these other factors that you need to consider. So maybe we need to have a meeting. I have a quick question to have an e-meeting or a quick phone call or something like that. And it's amazing. Then they just like it becomes not a priority. But when we get that question in our email, we immediately think it's a priority. So that's a really good way of not giving away your time. I think as accountants, where we definitely lose our time is in emails and phone calls, because we do a lot of them every day. They're hard to track. We might be doing our file notes properly, but are they getting on the billable list? Who knows? That's where we're really losing our time. So you want to make sure that you're billing for all of the advice that you give as well.
Absolutely. And we've done quite a while ago a room on emails and zero inboxing and all of those sorts of things. And if anyone's interested in hearing that, you can go back and see it on YouTube. But it was our most popular room. And has received the most watches that we've ever had. And so we may just do that again, because emails are a big drain on our time. And I was just having this exact chat with a client yesterday. And when we see our inbox, we become very reactive to our inbox, thinking that, oh, someone needs me, I need to answer them straight away. But I don't know about you, if you put yourself in the sender's shoes. I know that I shoot off emails, every 10 minutes or so, or even more, just thinking, oh, I'll get that out of my head and I'll send that to Kyelie, and then she can deal with that when she's ready. So I'm not expecting immediate response. And, most of the people that send us emails wouldn't be either, unless you have trained them to expect an immediate response. And that's what happens when you are reactive. You train everybody that sends you those emails. They start to expect a response straight away if that's what you've been doing. And then when you don't, they go, did you get my email? Just checking. Have you got it? And there's 3 more emails that you've had to look at, and you're melting down and the steam's coming out of your ears thinking, why can't they leave me alone? When, in all honesty, you set up that behavior. So, thinking about that management of emails, being reactive, go back and listen to the zero inboxing. Kyelie, really good point about emails.
So,
we could list 50 secrets of successful practice owners, but for me, the number one thing is managing cash flow. Because what's the point in doing all the work that you're doing if you're not getting it? So I'm really glad that we've touched on that. We've talked about the people, which is great. We've talked about the tech.
What else you got on your list, Linda?
What else you got on your list, Linda?
Well, there was more stuff around clients and being selective about our clients, and we did just briefly touch into that. But I think the thing is very important. Don't be afraid to say no. And you raised that, Kyelie, before. If somebody doesn't want to pay for something, or they don't want to have the meeting for this quick advice, don't be afraid to say no to clients, whether that's either not taking them on in the first place, or no to the way that they're trying to dictate to you how they want the service to roll out. This is your business. And I think, again, look, this is all going to stem from your planning. What do you want? What is the end that you want to have? And understanding that if you start to erode that away, you're never going to get that end that you're so desire. So don't be afraid to say no, because I think a lot of us, we're all taught, oh my goodness gracious, the client comes first. You can't sack a client. Where will the money come from? We were just very accepting to any client that come across the door, almost anyone with a heartbeat. Now, of course, we all know that there are those clients that are not suitable for our practices for one reason or another. And I think we've got to get very clear about that and not being afraid to say no. So ideal client, don't be afraid to say no would be one of my success tips.
I'll take it one step further. Don't be afraid.
I'll take it one step further. Don't be afraid to say, see you bye. I think there's so much work out there. It's not 10 years ago when it was like, oh, I need to go and, try and really hard make my network and get my clients. There's so much work. If you're doing a good job, people will use their word of mouth and share it. Sometimes I think we don't set ourselves up for success. I said before, if we give too much, clients expect too much. And sometimes if clients don't respect the new boundaries that you've placed, it is time to say, see you bye. And we see some horror stories. You just have to hop onto any Facebook group and you see horror stories. And I'm sure it's happened to all of us in some way, shape or form. But we don't have to. There's lots of options. It's on us. If we keep providing service and hating on that client and just thinking, I'll just charge them more or whatever the story is, at some point you do have to, you do have to sort of go, no, this is not okay.
Correct. And, one of the comments that popped up when I was looking at this was around firing clients rather than complaining about them behind their back. So if you're finding that you are constantly complaining about a certain client or the team are complaining about the client, I think there's 2 steps in that. I think you don't just move to fire them unless, look, they've done something very bad, like, were aggressive or abusive to team members. That's not on, or you. That simply is not on. That's an immediate see you out, out the door. But however, if it is something that, if you reflect on the client relationship, that perhaps it's something you may have almost trained them to do. So think about some of the ideas around, can I educate them? Can I talk to them? What can I do rather than just raising the fee? So be proactive about this. Then if you give them a couple more months and you take the time to try and educate them, to explain to them what you expect, they still don't tie the line, that's see ya out the door. And I think you've got to be really quite resolute about that.
Yeah, I think so too. And that just
comes back to really knowing your ideal client, what that looks like, what the relationships look like, and training everyone in the firm to provide a similar service. Because if one person is, doing a 15 out of 10, but the service line is a 9 out of 10, then that's going to create a problem as well, which is not the client's fault. It's actually an internal issue. So really think about how you want to be maintaining those client relationships across the board.
Absolutely. So we've talked about a lot of successful tips for practice owners here today. And I think the thing is take some time, particularly at this time of year here in Australia. We're setting up for a new financial year. Take some time to look ahead, to plan, think about what can we learn from the last 12 months, what would we like to do differently. And there's plenty of us out in the industry, myself included, that if you want to run these things past, that we're happy to hear and happy to help. So just reach out for some advice, because these things are best done in a collaborative environment, and because you'll have your own technician's hat, your own focus on, and won't maybe quite see things the way someone else will. So reach out to that support group and that network that we were talking about, or plenty of us out here in the industry that can help. So I think ultimately the most important thing is to be kind to yourself. We all do make mistakes. We're human. You will choose wrong systems from time to time. You'll choose the wrong people and clients, all of it. There will be mistakes. But I think the most important thing is that if you can learn from that, reflect and learn, don't judge. I've got a good friend of mine that says, let's just get curious about it. No judgment. So learn, grow, evolve, and get better. And, know what you're heading towards. And I think that's the overall success, isn't it, really? Just creating what you want to create and being kind to yourself and others.
Yeah, 100%. Good.
Yeah, 100%. Good.
Perfect. All right. So what are we talking about next month, Kyelie? Okay. So, of course, we are a monthly event. So the first Wednesdays of the month, if you haven't got them in your calendar, pop them in the calendar. And next month, 2nd of August, into August already, 7 a.m. We're going to chat about how to manage tricky conversations with your team. So we talked about tricky conversations with clients. Now we're going to talk about tricky conversations with team and overcoming a fear of conflict, which I think there is a level of in all of us. So some more than others, and then often sometimes these tricky conversations don't happen, which can wreak a lot of damage. So that's what we're going to be chatting about next month. We hope you can all join us. Thank you again, Kyelie. Wonderful as always. Thank you for your time and everything that you do for this industry.
Thank you, Linda. Great chat. We will
Thank
see
you,
you
Linda.
next month.
Great chat.
Bye.
We will see you next month.
See you then. Bye.